supporters, well, when all else fails, when it seems like nobody is caring about your CBA anymore because the NBA gambling situation sucked all the air out of the basketball room and the basketball world, to be honest. When all of that happens, signal from the bullpen.
Napheesa Collier just name-dropped Caitlin Clark in the middle of WNBA CBA negotiations, and the internet is exploding. People are pissed. After a whole season of basically watching Clark get mauled on the court and saying nothing, Collier's suddenly using her name to try and get better contracts. The timing? Sketchy. The hypocrisy? Blatant. And fans are not letting it slide. It's not about solidarity, folks. It's about using Clark's insane star power as leverage. I mean, seriously. Is it just me, or is it totally hypocritical for players who were silent while Caitlin Clark was getting absolutely hammered to suddenly be all about using her name to negotiate better contracts? The WNBA CBA negotiations were barely making a blip on anyone's radar. The NBA gambling scandal sucked all the air out of the room. No one, and I mean no one, was paying attention to WNBA players fighting for better pay and conditions. Then bam, Napheesa Collier pulls a rabbit out of her hat and drops the one name guaranteed to set the internet on fire, Caitlin Clark. Suddenly everyone's an expert on CBA negotiations. Funny how that works, isn't it?
Awfully quiet when Caitlin Clark was getting her brains beat out last year. In 2024, the rookie season. Where were you? Where were you? I mean, look, is she coming to grips with the fact that Caitlin Clark is the whole damn league, nothing but the league, it's so help me God? Is she coming to facts with that? Maybe. Good. I don't know if these players were into...
Collier's been one of the loudest voices during these negotiations, no doubt about it. She's been calling out Commissioner Cathy Engelbert left and right, blasting the league's treatment of players and the lack of revenue sharing. Remember that exit interview back in September? She claimed Engelbert told her that Caitlin Clark should be grateful she's making $16 million off the court, because without the WNBA platform, she wouldn't be making a dime. That quote detonated online when it first dropped, and we've had a month or so to chew on it. But here's the thing, the more time passes, the more people are starting to wonder if that conversation actually went down the way Collier says it did. I mean, it's a super specific quote attributed directly to Engelbert, but there's no recording, no other witnesses mentioned, nada. Just Collier's word that this is what the commissioner said. Now let's be real, Engelbert is absolutely capable of saying something that tone deaf and insulting. Her history kinda speaks for itself on that front, but the timing of this revelation and the way it's being used makes you wonder if we're getting the whole story or even the truth.
So, Collier took her sentiment about Clark's WNBA pay one step further in speaking to Glamour magazine for a feature story. We're being so grossly almost taken advantage of. It should be illegal. The amount of money that Caitlin Clark has made the league is insane. She's getting 0% of it because we have no rev share. She has less than $80,000 a year and she's bringing in like hundreds of millions of dollars. It's insane. Unpopular opinion, even if they got a rev share, she would be making no money.
Collier doubled down on the whole Clark pay situation in an interview with Glamour magazine in late October. She said, "We are being so grossly almost taken advantage of, it should be illegal. The amount of money that Caitlin Clark has made the league is insane, and she's getting 0% of it because we have no revenue share. She gets less than $80,000 a year, and she's bringing in what? Hundreds of millions of dollars. It's insane."
We have the best players in the world. We have the best fans in the world. But right now, we have the worst leadership in the world.
I have great respect for Fee, and I think she made a lot of very valid points. And, you know, I think what people need to understand, you know, we need great leadership in this time across all levels. This is straight up the most important moment in this league's history. Well, this league's been around for 25 plus years, and this is a moment we have to capitalize on.
Okay, on the surface, those statements are totally factual. Clark is massively underpaid compared to the mountains of revenue she's pulling in for the league. She's the whole reason for the new media rights deal. She's the reason attendance and viewership went through the roof. She's the reason casual sports fans suddenly gave a damn about the WNBA. and she's making less than $80,000 a year, while the league is signing billion-dollar TV contracts. Mostly because of her, that's a seriously wild disparity that needs to be addressed ASAP. But here's where the hypocrisy alarm bells start ringing like crazy. Where the heck was Napheesa Collier when Caitlin Clark was getting absolutely hammered night after night during the 2024 season? Where was all this sudden concern for Clark's well-being and fair treatment when she was getting elbowed in the face, clotheslined, body-checked, and physically targeted in ways that would have gotten anyone else suspended? Collier was suspiciously quiet back then. She didn't speak up after the games. She didn't call out the blatant physical targeting. She didn't demand that the refs protect Clark from dangerous plays. The silence was deafening. But now, suddenly, Clark's name is super useful for negotiating better contracts, and Collier can't stop bringing her up. Come on. That's not solidarity, that's straight up opportunism. That's using someone's fame and name to push your own agenda after failing to support them when they actually needed it. Fans are seeing right through this, and they are not impressed.
Because Stephanie White was just talking about, oh, people are using Caitlin Clark's name. People are using Caitlin Clark's name, including you, question mark?
And the timing? Don't even get me started. It comes right after Stephanie White, Clark's new coach in Indiana, started talking about how everyone's trying to glom onto Clark's name for attention. White basically said everyone wants to attach themselves to Clark for publicity and relevance. Then, literally days later, Collier's name-dropping Clark in interviews about CBA negotiations. The irony is so thick you could spread it on toast. White calls out the behavior, and then bam, we get a perfect example of exactly what she was talking about. Fan reactions to Collier's comment, a mixed bag to put it mildly. Some people appreciate her calling out the pay disparity and arguing that Clark deserves way more money. Those fans see her as fighting for fair compensation across the league. But a huge number of fans are calling out the hypocrisy and the shameless name-dropping. They're pointing out that Collier didn't have this same energy when Clark was getting physically abused on the court. They're saying she's only using Clark's name now because it helps her in these negotiations. One fan wrote, Napheesa Collier just shamelessly plugging Caitlin's name. I respect it. That's a pretty cynical but honest take. Yeah, it's manipulative, but at least she's not trying to hide it. Another fan wrote, remember when Steph White said she was tired of people trying to use Caitlin for their own agendas? Yeah, this would be one of those times. That comment nails the frustration. Even Clark's own coach saw this coming and warned about it, and then it happened almost immediately. The bigger picture here is that a lot of WNBA players have complicated feelings about Clark. Some resent the attention she's getting, attention they feel they deserve. Some are jealous of her endorsement deals and all the media coverage. Some don't like that a player who hasn't even won a championship, who's only been in the league for a hot minute, is already more famous and influential than veterans who've been grinding for over a decade. That resentment definitely played a part in the physical targeting Clark faced. Some players felt justified in playing her extra rough because they saw her as getting special treatment and undeserved hype. But now, those same players need Clark's name to get attention for their contract negotiation. They need her star power to make people care about these CBA talks, which would otherwise be inside baseball that only hardcore fans follow. They're in the super awkward position of having to publicly acknowledge Clark's value to the league after spending a year trying to diminish it and physically punish her for having it. That cognitive dissonance is hard to watch, honestly. Collier's situation is especially interesting because she's not just a player. She's also a vice president of the Players Union, alongside Breanna Stewart. And oh yeah, both of them also own a competing 3-on-3 league called Unrivaled. So Collier's got multiple things going on here. She wants better WNBA contracts for all players, including herself. She wants the union to get a better deal in these negotiations. And let's be real, she probably wouldn't mind if some of the resentment towards the WNBA drove more interest and participation in her own league. All these competing interests make her motivations even more questionable, right? The big question everyone's asking is, where was all this advocacy before the last 6 weeks? Why were Collier and so many other players so quiet about all these league issues for years? But suddenly they're super vocal now that CBA negotiations are happening. The cynical but probably accurate answer is that they need leverage and public support to get what they want from the league. And the easiest way to get that support is by dropping Caitlin Clark's name and pointing out how ridiculously underpaid she is compared to the value she brings. It's strategic, sure, but it's also pretty obviously manipulative. The reality that a lot of WNBA players don't want to admit is that Clark is basically carrying the entire league on her back right now. That new media rights deal, worth over $2 billion, it happened because networks believe Clark is going to bring in the viewer. Attendance at games featuring Clark was consistently way higher than games without her. Merchandise sales went through the roof because of her popularity. Social media engagement went absolutely insane when she played. The numbers don't lie. Clark is the engine driving the WNBA's growth right now, and everyone else is benefiting from her star power. But instead of being grateful for that rising tide lifting all boats, a lot of players resented it. They wanted the attention and the revenue, without having to admit where it was actually coming from. They wanted to pretend the league's growth was some kind of collective effort. Instead of one player's insane popularity, that delusion allowed them to justify the physical targeting and the lack of protection Clark got from the refs in the league office. If they admitted she was special and deserved protection, they'd have to face their own jealousy and inadequacy. Now the chickens are coming home to roost. CBA negotiations are happening, and players want more money. But to get that money, they need to show that the league's value has gone up. And the easiest way to do that is by pointing to Caitlin Clark and saying, look how much money she's making us, while she's making almost nothing. It forces them to publicly acknowledge what they've been privately resenting, that Clark is the most valuable player in the league by a mile, and everyone else is riding her coattails to better contract. The comments about Clark getting less than $80,000 a year while bringing in hundreds of millions in revenue are designed to get people outraged. And they do get people outraged, but maybe not in the way Collier wants. Fans are outraged that Clark is underpaid, but they're also outraged that players who basically contributed to her getting beat up now want to use her name for their own financial gain. The hypocrisy is just too much to ignore.